for a nation or anything with the declaration of war. This is simply the most efficient way to further your career. And yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of moving parts to this, and there are. But if you take it one step at a time, you've got this licked. And, here's the thing. Here's one other bit of advice. Can you tell I'm fired up about this?
Sure.
Here's this. If you want to know anything, I'm going to reveal a secret website. Now, everybody, if you're listening, just get out your pen and paper right now, because I'm not going to repeat it, okay? And this is a place I'm sure nobody's heard of. But, if everybody's ready now, you can find out anything you need to know about writing, about publishing, about editing, about marketing. It's called Google.com. Okay. It's a real top secret site. Nobody's aware of it but me. And I'm sharing this with your viewers. Here's another one. There's also another one called YouTube. Really obscure websites that no one but me has discovered, but I'm here to share this secret information with your listeners. You're welcome. And the thing is also, if you follow writers on like Facebook or whatever, or on their website, especially on social media where they make posts and stuff, like what they do. Follow them and follow the conversations and do it to get to know them, because we can tell when you're trying to suck up, okay? It's not that hard to tell. But, and then start liking and start engaging them in conversation. And if eventually you might get to the point where, it doesn't hurt you if you have a question and you get the chance to, PM them or whatever, ask.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask the information.
Yeah.
And if they don't get back to you in 2 years, you kind of guess that they're a little busy or someone else is managing their social media for them. But
go ahead and ask questions, because the worst they can say is no. That's probably the best advice my dad ever gave me.
It's brilliant. Mm-hmm. Really. No one's died from that yet.
Yeah.
That I'm aware of.
No.
But and it's just like I have a friend who used to work for one of the movie studios, and he was always getting favors from people. And one of his comrades was saying, "Well, I need to know your secret." And so my friend said, "Okay, take me to lunch, and I'll tell you. And bring your assistant with you." And so the assistant came, and he had like a couple of tape recorders,
oh my gosh,
and a pad of paper, and 4 or 5 pens. And so after the small talk, my friend said, "Okay, here's how you get people to." Get ready now. Turn on your recorders now. Get your pen ready. Make sure it writes. I'm going to tell you how you get people to do things for you, or to give you advice in this case. Pick up the phone and ask them. At the top of his lungs, he shouts this, and then there's this dramatic pause. He goes, "Do I need to repeat anything?" Just ask the question. It won't kill you. And the thing is, as you have noticed with Ariana's current guest, people love to show their expertise.
Yeah.
And like in research, if you have a question, say it's a medical question, ask your doctor.
Yeah. Don't go to Google and find out what's wrong with yourself.
Oh, yeah. Don't trust the internet for this sort of thing, although I am an internet architect, doctor, and lawyer. But no, you go to an expert, and even if you have to pay for their time, like with an attorney, what you get from that is so valuable, and people love to talk about what they do, because if they're like me, they're fired up, they're passionate about it. And, that will give what you write an extra bit of oomph, because people who are aware of that field will recognize what is called verisimilitude, which is the appearance of truthfulness. And, it's like, but when it's not there, people will know.
Yeah.
And it kind of colors their perception of your writing from that point on. So don't be afraid to research stuff, and don't be afraid to ask an expert.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Because I used to always be afraid to ask people questions, but every time, as a kid, as an adult, ask a question, the worst thing they can say is no. Just try to remember that. And I tell myself, anytime I get scared to ask anybody something, I'm like, the worst they can say is no, or they can just ignore me, and so be it. I'll look elsewhere. And
there you go.
So, I mean, it's real easy. So, and I just happened to, bump into Brian, one time, me and Josh at a convention, and it's all history from there. We've asked him advice on all sorts of stuff.
And I haven't shut up since. Yeah, that's the way I work.
But your advice is very valuable. And thing is, it's when you are asking advice from someone you're talking to, please pay attention, please take notes, because that person's time is valuable.
Exactly. And they could be doing 100 different things at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But they stopped what they were doing to pay attention to you and to help you. Now, the thing is, if you have any sort of sense of gratitude at all, and this is what Rising Tide is about, you pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because one day you follow that good advice, and your star will rise. And when you get to a certain level, people are going to start asking you these questions. And I want everyone listening in your audience right now, when they reach that point, and it will happen if you put enough work into it. If you reach that, when you reach that point, and someone asks you the questions that you were asking someone else earlier, I want you, everyone, to give the correct answer back based on your experience with the same speed and generosity that your question was answered before. That's how you pay it back, by paying it forward.
Yes, pay it forward. It's a good phrase, and it was also a good book, and it was a good movie.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, I think I probably promised Brian, this is a little longer than I promised it'd be, but we got on some good topics, great advice, great show. So this would be a good show for any new writer, even someone who's already writing, to learn about public speaking and promoting their work, and, and how to get out there and ask questions and do your research. There's a lot of good tips in this show. So we thank Brian for offering all of his expertise. That's one reason I brought him on here. I felt that it would be very informational.
Well, thank you for having me. Sincerely, I thank you so much, and I can't wait till we can do shows together again.
Me too.
And things return to quote-unquote normal. But at least we have shows like this, and I'm so proud of you for putting out your work and interviewing other authors, and I am privileged to be now part of your history.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad to have you on here. Spoken Word Poetry Podcast. I know it sounds like a mouthful, but I wanted it to be more than just poetry. Like, our introduction says, we are, poetry, stories, truth, and I think we say it's what the soul needs. I had a guy do the introduction for me. Sounds really good. So, but I wrote the introduction. I wrote it straight from my heart. It isn't anything that's cheesy. It's completely truth, and that's what I want on this podcast.
There you go. And yes, this show, folks, was a little longer than most of Ariana's and it wasn't her fault. Trust me, I own everything. So I was vaccinated with a phonograph needle when I was young, and everyone has to suffer for it.
Well, thank you again, Brian. It's been a pleasure, and we'll possibly see him in the future. Keep listening to Spoken Word Poetry Podcast. If this is your first time, there's plenty of shows to listen to. A lot of them have me just sitting back and reading poetry. And then this here is part of a new series called Meet the Author. So just look through the titles. It will say Meet the Author, and then it will have whoever we're speaking to in that show. So we're glad to always have you listen. Thank you for listening to Spoken Word Poetry Podcast. Thank you for tuning in to Spoken Word Poetry Podcast. I appreciate each time you come to listen. When you listen, you are supporting my podcast. My only goal here is to share inspirational messages that I hope will inspire you, tell you a story, or offer a bit of wisdom. I hope you come back to listen again. Have a great day. If you are enjoying listening to Spoken Word Poetry Podcasts, then you just might enjoy poetry written by Ariana R. Cherry. You can buy her books on Amazon. Visit her website at arianarcherry.wordpress.com. informational.com.